Oh, yes. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show, sponsored by Cheshire Impact, on a mission to help people maximize their use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Bam. There it is. There it is. Live. Click a button and away we go. And this is going to be a fun one because my guest today, I'm going to tell you all about her. She is a thought leader. She's a content and social marketing expert, Forbes 30 under 30, speaker, author, evangelist. Her book is The Manifesto of Content Marketing Teams, which we will get into. Podcast host of The People in Marketing, co-founder and CEO of Planable, Xenia Muntean. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm very excited to talk to you.
Absolutely. And before we hit record, we were trying to figure out different time zones that we're in. And it's like, it's the end of the day for you and it's the beginning of the day for me.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
And you're in Romania right now.
Yes, I'm currently in Bucharest, Romania, Eastern Europe. Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. Sometimes I have better internet reception with guests internationally than I do with someone 4 states over in the US. It's crazy.
I remember, we don't want to get into politics from the get-go, but I remember Bernie Sanders made like a comment or a tweet or something about internet connection in the US. And he mentioned that, even Bucharest, Romania has better internet connection. And he did that on Twitter. And Romanians, my fellow Romanians transformed it into a campaign for Romania. Like, come to Romania, we have great internet.
That is brilliant. But see, I thought that was a compliment, but he was actually saying it's better than the bottom of the barrel, which is like completely
exactly.
Well, I'm here today, and I can assure him that this. But he lives in a state called Vermont. I don't know if you've heard of that, but I'm 1 state over, and his state makes my state nervous. So we just let the Vermonters do whatever they do over there. They have a lot of dairy farmers and ice cream, Ben and Jerry's. That's about it. It's about all Vermont's good for. Sorry, Vermont. I don't think anyone from Vermont listens to this. So if they do, sorry, but it's true. But yeah, no, great internet access. There's so much wealth of knowledge and experience with you that I want to pass you this thing real quick. It's heavy, but across the international, here you go. Thor's hammer. You got it? You got to grab that thing.
Yes, I got it. I got it.
All right.
Let's get this done.
All right. Take Thor's hammer and smash some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Just set the record straight once and for all.
Yes, let's do this. So I have one that I really, really love. And the first one that I hear quite a lot from our customers and from our audience is, posting times on social media. So, considering that our company is in the social media marketing space, we get a lot of questions about, best practices and so on. So a lot of people ask us, what's the best time to publish? Or they ask us if you have any like feature where, you can automatically schedule posts at the best posting times on specific platforms.
Yeah.
So this is totally a myth. That's like a huge misconception about the industry. And that's actually a misconception that dates back from the times where, social media was a chronological thing. And definitely some platforms like Twitter do still have a chronological aspect to it. But it's not the case anymore with, all the other platforms, especially Facebook. It's all about algorithms. It's all about engaging content. It's all about the reactions you get on your content. And I'm pretty sure that, most people have already noticed that, when you see posts from your friends that, they published 5 days ago and you're, seeing them on top of your feed, It's not chronological. So the posting time doesn't really matter that much. It really matters what type of content you're actually creating more than anything. There is a component where, it might matter, for the platforms that have a chronological aspect to their feed. But even there, it really depends on the type of audience you have. It really depends on the industry you're in, on the type of business you have. It really, really varies quite a lot. So there is no one type, because you'll see, all of those articles on the internet, like best posting times on Instagram.
1:34 p.m., right?
Yeah. Exactly. So specific. That's like the sweet spot. So there's no such thing because it really depends on your business. So you really need to look like your business, right?
Mhm.
Like if you're a cocktail restaurant, probably evening times might work best for you. Or if you're, I don't know, a gas station, maybe morning and evenings when people, use your services might be correlated with, when they actually check your profiles. So it really, really depends on the type of audience and the type of business you have. And I think there is no just this magic number, magic time where everyone is online and you got to
Right.
hit it and all the other times are just bad. No, you got to experiment. And even with industries, like you might start with a time that you assume might be right for you depending on your business, as I mentioned with the previous examples. But then you got to iterate, right? Like you got to test it, you got to try different times and see what works. And yeah, I think that's the there is no good perfect time to post. It's all an experiment.
Why do people think that this is was there ever a perfect time?
I don't think so, but with the way the feeds worked in the past, especially the chronological ones, like with
Right.
the Facebook one, yeah, it's probably like posting at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. Is not the best time because not that many people are online then. Um, and there are peaks, obviously, like you can see the overall, like Facebook and all the other social media platforms are sharing data about
Yeah.
engagement on their platforms. So overall you can see that everyone in a specific time zone has specific peaks, right? Like in the afternoon or in the morning, it really depends on the platform. So I guess that's why people ask those questions. But it's not this very straightforward, plain, and simple answer. It's a bit more complex, and it does have nuances that involve the type of business, the type of audience, demographics of your audience, but also just like experimenting with it as much as possible.
Right, right. It's like trying to look for a shortcut, really. And what
Yeah.
I was reminded of is there's no necessarily perfect time across the board, but there may be for your audience and your kind of business, is what you'd said.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
combination of those two, the restaurants in the evening or pre-evening, it's almost time to go to. We're talking about when you're gonna go to dinner, you got some other calls
Yeah.
to make, but then you're gonna right before then, maybe if some things started happening that might be the perfect timing for that situation for you, for the restaurant. But someone else, you're right, like a store or a bakery or something, it might be the morning or the night before where you dream about those croissants all night, like there's
That's
all
so
kind of things,
true.
right?
I do dream about croissants. I have to be honest. I do
Those are
dream
good
about them.
dreams, by the way. You can eat as many dream croissants as you want and you don't get fat, you don't get out of shape. They're just perfect.
Exactly, those are the best ones. But yeah, I think start that's the ones that you mentioned are good starting points.
Yeah,
Like figuring out what could work for your industry and for your business is a good starting point, but you
yeah,
shouldn't stop there. Like you should start with them, but then also try to try different times. Maybe there's something and you need to consistently try that, because one post is not going to give you enough data, statistical relevancy, to say that if you try to post at 10 a.m. That, and it had crazy engagement, maybe the post was the thing, maybe something happened that day, right? So it really, you need to consistently iterate and experiment with those things on a across a long period of time, so that
right.
it's actually relevant statistically.
Do you have people that, because it sounds like it's the same kind of direction. They get so obsessed with the times and they're all looking at the clicks. Do they and then we forget like why we're tweeting in the first place, why we're sharing. We're supposed to be what, helping and doing, but we've like lose sight of that and we're just trying to like extract these clicks from people which may or may not even have monetary value.
Yeah, I mean, clicks are probably not the best metric, not the worst metric to track. I've seen people, looking at other, worse metrics, vanity ones,
What's the worst
like
ones?
likes,
Yeah,
probably, or followers. I mean, they're not bad metrics in itself, but they don't tell you that much actionable stuff, right? Like it maybe tells you a bit about the audience, but who cares if you have huge audience if it's not engaging with your content.
right.
So I think the clicks are not that bad, because it means that the content you've built is interesting to people, or it's helpful. They want to learn more. They want to, actually take advantage of your help, benefit of your help. So it's not such, it's not a bad one. Likes are worse because it doesn't say anything. People, like their content. Maybe they just, read the headline and that was all. They didn't actually took advantage of the help, the content, the value that you've created for them. So yeah, definitely there are, and again, that's another thing, like the fact that there are specific metrics that you actually need to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And those are universal metrics that everyone needs to follow on social
Mm.
media. Like, again, that really depends. Like, metrics are correlated with the goals that you have. Like, what type of goals do you have? Do you want to grow your audience, or do you have, more eyes that are seeing your posts? Or do you want like a super short, sweet, and engaged audience? Those are different metrics that you're going to look at. You're going to look at follower count, and then you're going to look at things like comments and potentially clicks. So again, there is no universal metrics that you have, must have metrics to follow in social media marketing. It again goes back to your business, and more specifically to the type of goals that you have around social.
Boom. I don't know if you have the mic drop in Romania. Do you have the mic
Yes.
drop? You do. Okay.
Yeah, we
Is
do.
this a universal thing now, the mic drop? Just drop, because I think you just did a mic drop moment. I think that's like the promo and that's everything. That was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
The metrics are correlated with the goals you have. Like aligning to the goals makes so much sense. And the vanity metrics of the likes. I mean, I know some people, I've even done it like 1 a.m. You're like a like machine. You're like, oh, favorable. Bloop, bloop. It's more like Instagram is like, oh yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least I think with
Exactly.
the Facebook likes, at least they've added the different kinds. So
It
now,
gives you a bit more nuance
yeah,
to like the
not that
sentiment.
anyone, it's like, it's so weird because no one's doing anything with that. And that's just my react. It's so weird if we really think about it, right? Like whether it's a friend or business posts something, and instead of liking, I'm putting wow. If it was crazy, like whoa, crazy, wow, or sad or this or that. I don't even know why I do that, other than it's a fraction of a bit more expression than a like, because you don't want to
Mm.
like some tragic thing, but it's like it's a weird game, right? Have you seen that movie Social Dilemma,
Was
the
it the one
documentary?
on Netflix? Is
Yeah,
that the one?
I think so.
Yeah, I think I did it, like a documentary
Yeah, I
on the
haven't seen it, so
social
I'm not very much
channels.
help, but I hear lots of things
I
about it right now.
I did it. I feel that it's a bit, I'm not sure. I just got a bit of a vibe that it's potentially a bit exaggerated.
Gotcha.
It makes social media seem very creepy, and very, like this human experiment that is happening nowadays. And I think I would have appreciated if they would have brought the other side, because it felt like it's
They didn't do
um,
that.
yeah, they
Ah,
didn't really
jeez.
bring, I mean, maybe they tried, but
Maybe they
the
tried.
channels didn't want to, the networks didn't want to, get into this. But it seemed like it was more just one-sided opinion
Mm.
on how bad social media networks are and how
You know,
much they're manipulating us.
right? Like trying to make it more dramatic. And apparently, the
Yes.
drama worked. Apparently, people are talking about it, so the drama worked.
Yeah,
But your
that
point,
always does. Yeah.
getting something more of a balanced feel to it would have been helpful. If they had brought you on to do a counterpoint, what would you have said to that? And it's almost like, if you haven't seen, for
Oof.
people listening, if you haven't seen it, now you have the counterpoint. Now you can go watch it and then have a different experience. So what would you say in response to that?
I I would say that, I've seen Facebook, um, really changing the way they build, the algorithms, and I've seen them doing a lot of improvements lately. Because a big point that they've made is that social media is designed to be addictive, and it's like a
Mm,
drug. And those companies are designing everything so that you spend more and more and more of your time on social media and not live a rich life. And I don't think that's the case. I think it's a very simplistic way of looking at things, and I don't think people don't have the power to control their own actions, and they're just puppets. I don't see humanity like that, to be honest. I think we do have a lot of ownership. I think we do have the ownership over our own actions.
Right.
We can control. I think we're more powerful than that documentary kind of painted
Mm,
most of the people. And I've also seen the platforms trying to improve things, like the fight that Facebook is currently taking on fake news is to be appreciated. And
right.
I think they didn't light enough. I didn't put the spotlight enough on those things, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be fair, it's a tough position to be in. We don't, because I know there's conversations. Is this a public utility? Is this a thing that is it? What is this? And
Yeah,
until then, it is a private company. They can do technically whatever they want to do, which is good and bad in a way. And maybe that because it's kind of behind this black box that we don't necessarily know, and you can assume it's to make the company more money, in the
yeah.
end, if it's a company. So yeah, I think that's probably where some of the fear comes from, but
I
it's a good
think
point that we're not necessarily all puppets.
I think it's I know what they've been trying to do. They wanted to design it, extremely dramatic, to make it as a wake up call, for people, because people don't think about social media enough in that perspective. I think because I've been thinking about it, being in this specific industry. I wanted to see the other half
Yeah.
of the coin, but most of the people don't think about social media as being addictive and manipulative. So I think it was designed to be a wake up call for people to realize how much time they're spending, the effects it has on mental health, and also a wake up call for people to potentially demand their rights in terms of data and privacy. And I think I understand why they did it like that. But like my personal point of view would have been to just potentially include the other side of the coin a bit more.
Interesting. It just as much as, see here, I'm gonna hate on this film, and I haven't even seen it yet, but I'll have to go see it now. But just
Yeah,
as
me
much as they're
too.
saying people are puppets and just blindly doing whatever social is having them do, they're giving us a documentary where they're just potentially giving us one point, and it's like, tell you what, I'll text Netflix. I'll give them your information. Let's see if we can, add this thing in there as a little addendum to the end. Like, okay, well, here's another point. It's true. It's not a, we call that like the sort of black and white. It's almost like a Boolean. It's
Yes.
not an on or off light switch. It's like it's a gradient that we're trying to figure
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, from social all the way to documentaries and all these things. And do you have a favorite social platform? Do you have one that you're looking at, or is that the same kind of question that I'm asking? What time should I tweet at?
No, I mean, personally, I do have
Yeah,
a favorite one. I spend most of my time on Instagram, most of my social media time on Instagram, and I
me
feel like
too.
that one is probably the most addictive to me. I feel like I'm an extremely visual person. I learn visually. I explain stuff to people visually. The idea even my own business has been built on the idea of making things extremely visual for people.
Mm,
So being such a visual person, having a graphic design background as well, Instagram is just the natural choice for me because it's so much photo based, visual, graphic based rather than text. Like Twitter doesn't have that appeal for me because it's text based compared to Instagram, which is graphic. So I do hang out on Instagram probably too much.
me too. And it'd be interesting to think about why I've kind of run away more and more from Facebook. Well, first of all, I basically unfollowed or unfriended the majority of people that are sharing those social dilemma type stuff. Like I don't want to see it. I want to see something terrible happen to somebody in Iowa. Bad things happen to people all over the place. It's good to be informed, but also I don't need every single negative hit all the time. So I've really kind of curated Facebook. So basically I see when I post things, that's all I see. Or maybe a few other people. But it's like it's so locked down and restricted. And to your point, I'm much more visual too. So I've actually, I think I was a late adopter to Instagram, but I found the same thing. And for Instagram, rather than being my friends, and there's a little bit of that, um, almost like an obligation. If someone's your friend, if you unfriend someone, it's like a big deal. Like, ooh, they unfriended us. Like and
Yeah.
does that mean they essentially don't want to be friends? It's breaking the wire, the rope of friendship there. And there's all that sort of like, oh, should I still friend you? And that's why they have the secret unfollow, so that it's a kind of a mess. So for me,
Like the real life implications,
oh,
right,
right,
of
right, it's all
Facebook.
the real life implications, and do you connect with people in your own company? Do you not?
Yeah.
And then for me, almost, Facebook has turned into, even though it's supposed to be like a private thing, it's you're connected to people in the extended network that I guess they're business contacts or something now. And I'm not really free to be myself on Facebook anymore. Whereas Instagram, it's just things that are appealing to me. I'm only putting maybe my hiking or adventure photos, one we'll talk about in a little bit, but I'm also curating. I'm only following people that kind of like, it makes me happy, right? So
Mm.
I have like mountain climbers, I have fitness people, I have just influences I would like to have. So that when I open up the app, I've created this environment where it's like, it I get all the really cool things. And the other thing is the ads then correlate. So I get like mountain climbing ads now. I get ads showing me different kinds of rope I can buy, which I think is really cool. And like, ooh, this rope is 8.8 millimeter dynamic climbing rope. Like, this is exciting. So I don't know. I've sort of made it that. Have you done the same, or have you seen a difference with Instagram?
That's so interesting. So I agree. It's very like Instagram is curated. It's more like aspirational for me,
Totally.
like and it's also a great learning tool. Like I follow accounts to learn about stuff that interests me personally, like I don't know, skincare or
Interesting.
feminism and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a learning tool in a way. Instagram accounts that I like what they're posting and the topics they talk about,
Yeah.
and I learn a lot from their stories as well. And I spend a lot of time. I found myself spending more time on Instagram stories rather than on the feed lately. And it's also the place where I keep in touch quite a lot with, my closest friends. I follow their stories. I, look at what they're doing. I engage with them there. I don't see myself spending that much time on Facebook anymore. And I think I did the same mistake as you did, where I diluted my friend base so much
Yeah.
by just accepting everyone, and now it has become this public profile
Yep.
where I haven't posted like a personal photo on Facebook since, I don't know, 2 years at least. It's all
Yeah.
like job related or asking questions about like the local community. I might ask, recommendations and stuff like that when I travel, or
Yeah.
from friends locally if I'm trying to find something, stuff like that. But it's not that personal anymore. And it also, I've like curated it and cleaned it up so much from past personal stuff, like
Totally.
made photos private and stuff like that, so that it's very clean and neat, and it presents a specific image of myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's weird. Whilst Instagram is much more, I mean, it's still extremely curated. What am I talking about? It
True.
still presents a specific image, but it's more like, Facebook has this entrepreneur image, tech, that kind of stuff. And Instagram is, hey, I travel, I'm a human, and stuff like that,
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
great point. Yeah, the different kind of personas. And also what's wild
Mhm.
too is behind the scenes, Facebook owns both. So it's not like we're
They
somehow
have
escaping
it
from
both.
Facebook. They
Yeah.
still got you.
No.
Have
Yeah.
have you noticed on social advertising? I've noticed that for some reason Instagram ads tend to be better or more targeted, than
Yes,
Facebook ads. Like, I can't tell
I
you if I've ever
agree.
bought anything on Facebook.
Never. I don't think I ever bought anything off a Facebook ad.
Yeah.
But like just today, I like completed a form out of an ad from Instagram,
Did
and
you
someone
really?
called me, and I booked an appointment,
Oh
which is,
no.
insane. Like I feel like it's so much more specific and interest based than
Yeah.
than Facebook. I don't know. It's interesting. That's a good point. There might be something there in the way people follow accounts and the type of data collection that Facebook does.
Right.
But it's an interesting point. I never realized that, but yeah, that's true. You're right.
One time I was on Instagram and I was like, oh, that's good. And I'm like, I'm going to buy that. And then I want to say a few minutes later, maybe an hour or so later, coming back to it, ended up buying two things in pretty short succession within the same day from Instagram. And then I saw a third thing that I was like, oh, that would be kind of interesting to, and I was like on a spree and I was like, whoa, put the phone down. I don't know, I don't know what kind of weird lucky charms they're sending me right now, but I should probably not make another purchase. But yeah, to your point, it's more maybe around what your interests are.
And also, I think the behavior around Instagram is different. I think, like, I check Instagram mornings and evenings, like before. It's so bad. It's a bad behavior, I know, but like when I wake up, just so I can wake up,
Right.
it takes me a while to actually like wake up. So I like spend a bit of time just on Instagram until I, am alive.
Right.
Then
Do you turn the
when
light
I
down on the phone too? Because you're like, give me
Yes,
some. I
yes,
don't I
it's too
don't want all
much.
this light. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And same, in the evening as well, just so that it, puts me to sleep, like this
Yeah.
scrolling on the feed. And I just, sleep while I scroll through the Instagram feed. And I think, that type of behavior, you have my attention, you have my, undivided attention. Whereas the
Yeah.
Facebook, I feel like I'm, maybe in my work breaks, I might be on Facebook. And I feel like it's more like Instagram is more mobile because I think it was like designed with mobile in mind from the get-go. So I
Yeah.
spend more time on my phone on Instagram. I almost don't spend any time on Facebook on my phone.
That's a good point.
So those two things are interesting behavior, and I think that's why you get me in a you have my attention
Mm,
when I'm most vulnerable, when I
right.
wake up. And also when you have my attention, like I'm not doing anything else whilst, if I check my Facebook at work, I usually have like 5 minutes and then I have to move on to the next thing. So,
Right. And
yeah.
just the general probably dislike, that same kind of agitator that the documentary talks about is the same reason I'm not on Facebook, because I do not want the agitation. Right. So
Yeah,
from for me, the Instagram is the non-agitating, and I'm
true.
making it, and if it does get that way, I'm like, nope, you're out of here. I'm not following that because I already had that with Facebook, and that's not what I'm looking for. And so it's different, right? Your point, and you're focused on the feed, it's mobile
Yeah.
versus Facebook. There's a lot of things, including the feed.
Yeah. And also, I remember I was getting caught so many times into those endless controversial or very dramatic conversations that happened in the comment section at
Oh yeah.
people's posts.
Did you
And
post
I was
comments?
just
Did you fall into the comment trap, or?
no, I just read them. I'm a
Oh, you just read
lurker.
them. Okay.
So I was just reading them and like following the popcorn, following the conversation, what's happening, all the drama.
Yeah.
Like I'm not getting that out of Instagram, and it's good that I'm not getting it because
Yeah.
I would get so sucked into it as well. So more happy with Instagram.
Yeah.
It's more peaceful in a way. It does just
Exactly.
it does have like the negative effect of making you like the self-image and all of that, like the influencer accounts and all of that. Does But if you filter it out, if you like build your own feed that you're happy with, and you don't follow people that make you feel bad about yourself, I think it can be good. Yeah.
It's an interesting topic you bring up around the idea of social media with the curated life of like everyone's happy, and they brought this used to be Facebook. Everyone's happy. Of course, they fixed that, right? Not everyone. Now
Yeah,
everyone's upset on
of course.
Facebook. Um,
Yeah.
and I actually remember a moment. I don't know, it was like 8 years ago, but I remember it being a while ago now, where some post made me mad, and I was about to comment. I might have even gotten like a half a sentence in, and I was like, "Wait a second. What are you doing here? Delete, move on, maybe unfollow, maybe unfriend." And it's like, nope, nope. And I was realizing like, well, I'm putting these like kilobytes into the internet for there's no end outcome from that. And so I sort of broke
Yeah.
myself up from that habit because it just I realized how useless it was to do that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Um, so, and then back to the advertising with Instagram, and even Facebook. At one point I actually tried to make the ads more relevant because I was sick and
Mhm.
tired of generic ads that were just taking up space and had nothing to do with me. And it just like, guys, it's so annoying, you know. And as a fellow marketer, I was like, okay, you can do better than this. You need more input from me. So I remember doing this on Facebook. I started liking a couple pages.
Mhm.
But I didn't never really had to do that with Instagram. I think maybe they're just tying into even posts that I've liked or people that I've found or more of that behavioral type stuff. But now I actually feel happy, like the dream of truly targeted ads where, like I said, the climbing rope, or I see an ad for the Climber magazine or some, you know, something's happening. And I'm like, oh, cool. I'm not going to buy you now, but you're getting to me. Maybe I will eventually buy you. Like that feels better because it's showing me things that are relevant to me.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I think the type of ads that target me on Instagram are also pretty good ones. Like visually, it's
Yeah.
like quality ads
Yeah.
more than the things that you might be getting on Facebook. Like direct to consumer brands that are doing cool stuff. So I'm not sure if that's just the brands that happened to be targeting me, but I feel like the quality of the ads visually, graphically,
Yeah.
design wise is a bit better than what I've been seeing on Facebook before. So yeah, that's interesting. I think in order to be like the marketers that do ads on Instagram, they probably are a bit more well trained in the aesthetics of Instagram, and they potentially care about that and implement that in their own designs. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting point of view as well.
All I got to do now is get LinkedIn to start showing me rock climbing harnesses and I'll just be perfect. I need the final advertising solution to cover everything. That'll be fantastic. All right, cool. I wanted to shift gears a little bit because
Yes.
we talked social, and social usually drives the clicks and the engagement, and eventually, especially in the B2B world and often the consumer world, you've got content next. And I know, I mean, you've even written a book on content teams. What's your take on content? What are we getting wrong the most?
In content marketing,
Yeah.
I think this uh, opinion that you need to just build amazing content, and people will just come and consume it, and that's everything that you need to do. Build something viral, something amazing, and people will come. The audience will come, and I think that's something that most of the teams don't get right. I think we forget, and we've definitely been doing that mistake at Planable as well, where we build a lot of content, but then we forget quite a lot about um, the distribution part, the
Yes.
repurposing part, and the SEO part. All of that. It's not enough to build extraordinary content. You have to invest a lot of time. At least half of your time. That you at least as much time as you invest in building that content, you gotta invest in promoting it and in distributing it. And it sounds like such a simple thing, but I don't think the distribution of time is there. I think
Yeah.
most of the times we invest more time and more resources and more energy into building that content than we do in like repurposing it. Maybe if you build an ebook, or if you do a video, repurposing it into infographics and articles and white papers and a podcast episode. And there's so
Yeah.
much more they can do in order to extend the life of that piece of content. And we forget about the SEO part, right? Like if you're not planning to sponsor and invest a lot of paid ads in that specific content piece, your second best option is SEO. So
Yeah.
really optimizing it for the search engines is again something that we should all remember doing. But so often we forget.
Is it's almost like it's a different discipline. And if you're a writer, writing is like the thing, and
Yeah.
it sounds hard for some people, but if you're the one doing it, like maybe the writing, the creating the content is the fun part, is the easy part. And then we're kind of avoiding it, hoping that, magically it'll just share itself with everyone.
Yeah, build it and they will come. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's the interesting part, right? Like the creation,
Mm-hmm.
the creativity part, the strategy, the research. That's the interesting part. You're building something from scratch, and who doesn't love doing that, right?
Right.
The distribution part is a different skill set. It's more, growth hacking. It's more potentially tedious sometimes. So I think that's why many teams are, overlooking it, or under investing in it.
Yeah, understood. Um, so in your book, you get into, it sounds like you need different people to do these different things.
Or develop it depends on the size of your business. If you're
Yeah.
like a small business, potentially develop that skill set
Yeah.
in yourself, and
Okay.
just a mindset shift, maybe that could also help. uh, Ideally, yes, different people, but if you're not there yet, a shift in mindset and realizing this and investing in those skills in yourself is something that you can do to compensate. But yeah, we talk about a bit about that in our book. We talk about what are the problems with content marketing nowadays, and we talk a lot about the processes, like not the sexy
Mhm.
part of content. We don't talk about what how to create better content and all of that, but we talk about how can you build a team that will manage to produce a lot of content to satisfy the demand of your audience, because the demand of your audience is going to grow and grow and grow, because content is becoming more and more of a thing. And I
Mhm.
think we've seen an explosion of content now with coronavirus and everyone working from home. So many brands, and the need for information and for valuable,
Yeah.
meaningful information has grown quite a lot, and a lot of brands are producing more brands than they were a year ago are producing content nowadays. So this is just going to get bigger and bigger. So how can you produce content in a scalable manner, with little resources, and how should what are the bottlenecks, and how can you build processes that will allow you to scale that production of content. So that's what we talk about in the book.
Wow. Very cool. Um,
Yeah.
can you share like maybe a secret from the book?
A
We've
secret.
talked about how to do it wrong. So when it comes to doing it right, getting it out there, what is there a secret to the promotion of this, or to getting that content actually consumed?
I think it's not a secret necessarily, but like an unexpected thing, that if you start investing in building those processes and creating those operations, like the foundation of how your team
Mm,
is going to produce content. Something that people don't think about, and they need to think about, is the fact that sometimes we need to move slower in order to move forward, and to progress and to evolve.
right.
And you're going to have that period of like moving slower, where you think about, okay, how do we improve this? Like, what's the bottleneck? Why, like, what is stopping us from actually producing? What are the silos that are stopping us from collaborating efficiently in the team?
Right.
Maybe it's the fact that we have two systems where we store files in Dropbox and Drive, and we shouldn't do that. How do we centralize it? How should it look like? Where do we give feedback on content and so on? Like, so many things that you can probably improve in the way your team works.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, you're going to have to like slow down a little bit, to put those processes in place in order for you to then move forward faster, afterwards. But like, this realization is extremely important, because people think that they're going to do something, and then it's because it's change management, right? Like, you need
Right.
people to learn it, to adapt to it. So you're going to have like a period of time where you're going to probably be moving a bit slower than you were before, and it's going to feel like, oh, why did I change all of this? It was working so well. But you're going to see the effects, in the long term.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like the idea of putting a plan out there. I think some of us are in a hurry to just go. The whole like ready,
Yes.
aim, fire. We're just like fire. Oh shoot, we should have maybe planned that. Do you
Thought
encounter
about
that a
it.
lot with social?
Yes, quite a lot, especially because social is such a dynamic industry, and there's so many new trends every single day.
Yeah, it's
Facebook is
true.
like launching new formats of content every single day, and new platforms, TikTok and all the other ones, and everyone feels like this need of jumping on this new trend. So they just they jump on it, and there's this talking about myths. There's this myth where it's okay to just jump on it, and then you're gonna figure it out at some point. uh,
Right.
but but there's this saying as well, that failure to plan is plan to fail,
I like
actually.
that.
So yeah, so that's, I think it's extremely important to think about why you're doing this in the first place. Like, what do you want to achieve with it? Like, if you want to be on TikTok, what's your goals? What do you want to do with it? What are you going to be talking about? What kind of content are you going to be doing? I don't say, plan your strategy for TikTok for the next 5 years, but maybe, at least for the next quarter, have something in
Right.
mind of what you're going to do. Don't over plan it, obviously, because, especially with the new channel or with everything new that you're doing, you might find out that your plan was, it doesn't fit with the reality. So you're going to need to iterate, but you still need some kind of consistent plan in mind before jumping into any kind of trend.
Yeah. Allow yourself to do some kind of plan, but then iterate after it. Understand that things may change and you'll need another plan, another way of attacking the situation, but not
Yeah.
over planning, not getting analysis paralysis where you can't make any moves or any changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
True.
ooh, I think we finally decided it's a good time to hop on Facebook, or no, MySpace, right? A good time to hop on MySpace now. You're like, it's still
You
around, but it's
miss
not the
the
thing.
train. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. 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 You don't want to be missing opportunities, obviously, but also don't get into that anxiety of I gotta do this right now.
right,
It's not healthy. It's not healthy mentally. It's also not healthy business wise. You gotta
right,
have a reason why you're doing those things, and you gotta have a plan.
right. Yeah, no, it makes total sense. It almost like goes without saying, but we need to say it because people aren't doing it.
Common sense is not so common, right?
Yes, yes. Um, Crazy. Where do you think this is all going? Are we just gonna have platform after platform, social? I
Yeah,
mean, can you give us like the 2-year picture? 'Cause I
I
get a
hope
sense
so.
that you just know everything that's gonna happen in the future. So you just let us all know what's gonna happen.
I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll tell you what I hope. I hope we're going to have more platforms.
Mm,
It's a bit creepy with Facebook, owning, Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, and, poking Snapchat and TikTok. It's a bit creepy. So I hope there's going to be, uh, more social networks, more channels, more platforms. I hope this doesn't stop here. At least, at least it's going to give Facebook an incentive to improve itself, because competition is healthy. So I think that's something that I hope quite a lot. And then in terms of like marketing, um, I hope marketers are going to be more intentional in the way they choose what they're doing marketing wise. I hope they're going to be more intentional in the way they create content, and we're not going to just
yeah,
create. It's not going to be just random acts of content.
yeah,
It needs to be planned, and I think in order to achieve this, um, you know organizations need to really really understand the content is not just the responsibility of marketing. It's actually, content is, I don't see it as a marketing thing. I see it like as an overall business thing. Yes, marketing can polish it, can produce it, but it needs to come from different sources, from within the organization, from the product teams, from the HR teams when it comes to employer branding, from sales, from everyone within the organizations, and everyone needs to be, we need to um, take down those silos in order for this to actually happen, in order to have content that is more diverse, it's more engaging, it represents the company 360, and it also takes a bit the pressure from the marketing,
yeah.
and makes it a common shared goal for the entire organization.
That makes total sense. Taking down the silos is so important. You know, I sure hope too that there are more platforms, more competition. I would say better platforms too. The trend of making shorter and shorter videos. Are we going to eventually have a tick. It's not even TikTok. There's not even 2 seconds. It's like, okay, 1 second videos, everybody. It's like, okay, all right, 1 second, half a second videos. That's a new platform.
Those are like the iPhone photos, right? Where it, like the moving photos for a second, where it gives
Yeah,
you like a glimpse into what happened right before you took the photo.
that's all you get. And they combine it with Snapchat and it disappears. And then they combine it with Facebook and everyone's mad at each other. And yeah, like yeah, I'd also be really interesting to have almost like an open source Facebook, you know, um, where it combined, man, I don't know what was in this coffee. This is Hawaiian coffee, Kona. Have you ever heard of that? But it's almost like combine open source with the cryptocurrency
Oh.
and shared platforms. So you have like a Facebook like platform where you can share with your family and friends your photos and your experiences, but the algorithm, you have like control over it, and you have complete
Hmm.
awareness and transparency over it, and your files aren't stored in any one place and all that.
I
Let's
love
let's
that.
create that, shall we? You want to create that? Want to have a meeting
Right now, let's get it
tomorrow?
started.
Yeah, right now. Let's get the dry erase board out.
What should we call it?
Oh man, what do you call it? Um, you could call it Facebook sucks, but I think the attorneys might have issues with that. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, something
Open
like
something. It needs to be open something. Something about openness or transparency.
open feed or something, where it's like,
Indeed. Yeah.
yeah, open connect. I don't know, or you go like the modern thing, which is like you call it Fliberty Gibbet, and it has nothing to
Or
do with
like,
anything that it does,
yeah,
right?
yeah. The name of like a bird or something.
Yeah. Cockatoo, um, falcon, all these random
Yeah,
things. Um,
exactly. Yeah.
man. Well, who are you? Xenia, you have an
Wow,
amazing
that's a big
name. I've
one.
never met anyone with that name before. Tell me
It's
about yourself.
it has like my name is a weird one. It's a very, very weird one. I don't think my parents like Googled. I mean, there was no Google back then, but like researched, went to the library to read about what it means. So it has it has this meaning of like it's a Greek name,
Oh,
and it
okay.
has this meaning of like stranger, which is like such a weird name. Um,
Really?
yeah, stranger, but also like hospitality, right? It's like you're kind to strangers. So it has like those two like meanings. It's a weird name, but I love it. It has the X in front of it, so it's cool.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, whoever gets to have an X in front of their name, like
yeah,
nobody.
yeah.
You do. That's about it. It's awesome.
And also thanks, Mom, for making it so difficult in every podcast, every show, everywhere I go for people to pronounce my name. I just gotta say it.
True.
I've heard it
True.
in a million ways.
True. We practiced it for like 10 minutes, right? You gave me vocal lessons and
Exactly.
yeah.
But who am I? That is a big one. So I was born and raised in Republic of Moldova, which
Oh,
is this,
wow.
yeah, this it's like this post-Soviet country in Eastern Europe. It's a tiny one. It's like 2 million people in that country. It's tiny, tiny. And yeah, I grew up there. Learned Photoshop probably in like fifth grade because I was a huge introvert, and my parents
Yeah.
moved from one. Yeah, they moved from one part of the country to another one, and I didn't have any friends, so I spent a lot of my time in front of my computer, learning Photoshop and that kind of stuff. And I think that's where my passion for design and advertising, that's
Wow.
where it has its roots. Just learning Photoshop when I was a kid and playing around and designing banners and that kind of stuff. And yeah, what else? I
Well, I'm
think
just looking at it. Moldova, right in between Ukraine and
yes,
Romania.
yeah,
Was it the
tiny.
more northern part or more southern toward the ocean?
Well, the central, yeah,
Central part. Okay.
yeah, yeah. It's a landlocked country. It doesn't have like seaside or mountains or anything. It's like flat. But
Yeah. Who
that's
got that? Who got that down below the southern coast? Did Ukraine get
uh,
that?
yeah, Ukraine. Yes, I mean,
Jerks.
yeah. I mean, not them, like the Russians back in
Oh,
1980.
okay. Sorry, Ukraine. But
Yeah, sorry.
yeah, landlocked. That you can't even go to the beach.
No, no. So yeah, that's why I don't know how to swim or stuff. Yeah,
You don't know how to
it's all.
swim.
I don't know. No, like I never needed it.
It's true.
And with yeah, and that's why I love mountains so much because we didn't have them, back home, and I'm in awe every time I go to the mountains here in Romania. I'm just in awe, and also it's like ironical because like my name means person that lives in the mountains, Muntean. Uh,
Oh,
and
right.
we
Your
don't
last name. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and we don't like live in the like it doesn't have any mountains, my country. So it's kind of like a nice touch, the fact that I've fallen in love so much with the mountains here in Romania.
Wow. To have a last name that involves the mountains, that's pretty neat.
I know, it's cool. It's cool. It's like empowering. It's like
Yeah. Do you like live in the mountains? I feel like with your name, you should take in strangers and be nice to them on the mountaintop, like it's one of those things.
yeah. No, no, but I do live close to them, like 2 hours.
Nice.
So I get the chance to go there quite often. I got into hiking this summer, just because with the
Oh yeah.
coronavirus, you don't get to travel, first of all, outside of the
Right.
country. So, and also you don't get to travel to, or you don't want to travel to things like the seaside, or more, kind of like locations that are more touristic.
Yeah.
And the mountains are just a great, because isolated and not so many people actually, climb them and, hike to, mountain peaks. So I've gotten into that this summer, and I quite enjoyed it quite a lot.
Yeah, I experienced the same thing where here I tell people, I mean, it's not in my last name, but I like to climb mountains, big mountains. And,
What's the
business.
biggest peak that you climbed?
Yeah, and it's all relative, right? So the only biggest peak I've climbed is Mount Rainier in Washington State, Seattle. So it's about 14,000. But it's a
14,000.
volcano.
That's pretty.
Yeah. So it was a really hard day, but I'm like, I've got my eyes set on some of the bigger ones. And I was actually supposed to go to Tanzania this year. I had flight booked and everything. I was going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, but it
Wow.
got, I had to reschedule it. So hopefully fingers crossed next year. But yeah, I keep wanting to do these mountains, but here, business and work and life had gotten to the point where I hadn't really done it. So with coronavirus going around, you're right. You can't really travel to places or do anything. And so the outdoors
Yeah.
are safe, and going to
Yeah.
the mountains was a great thing I got started into this year.
Yeah. And also like the weather, the wind on the mountains and all of that, the chances are very,
Oh
pretty
yeah, and
low.
sunlight just kills
Sunlight
coronavirus.
is
So it's
as
like
well.
super
Yeah.
safe. Yeah.
My highest one was 8,000.
Are you
It's
talking
not
meters or feet?
feet. I actually
Okay.
Googled that before. And it's like 2,000 meters or something like that,
Yeah.
2,400. But it's one of the highest. It's like top three
What's
probably
it
in the
called?
Carpathian. Omul, like the
Yeah.
person, like it's called like the person, but it's like OMUL, peak, in the Carpathian Mountains. It's a pretty good one. It's a neat one. It's probably like top three or something in the Carpathians. Um, so my job is done here. I don't have any other higher ones in here. So we should probably like look into the other ones in Europe. After all this craziness is over.
Well, and I don't have anything big in New Hampshire over here. The biggest we have is Mount Monadnock, which is this really popular climbed mountain. And let's see how this. It's not very tall. But it's a fun training. Yeah,
Mhm.
3,100 feet. It's in it, but it's like mini trails up it, right? There's something like 12
Yeah,
different trails. So I've had fun going up one, coming down a different one, do different
yeah,
trails every time, just in exploring
yeah,
the mountain. You get to know it better, which is kind of a neat experience too, because normally you visit a mountain, you climb it, and you're done. But with something like this, you get a chance to get to know it and get the feel of
yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's nice. I try to do that the same, but I'm still a beginner. I'm still a noob at this. So I've done the easy one, like no ropes or like I don't
Oh
know,
yeah.
like as little climbing as possible, because I'm also trying to um, get rid of my fear of heights,
Sure.
which is, it's important when you're, hiking on mountains. And also ridiculous considering the name. But I'm trying to, get that done. So I'm starting small, or at least, beginner paths.
Yeah. Well, I would say don't lose your fear of heights per se. I mean, if you're near the edge of a cliff, you probably should be scared. If you're dancing on the edge, I'm gonna be like, oh, that's kind of. I'm not getting that. Hey, come over, check that this cliff over here. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good over here. Or here's a rope. Now we're good. That kind of
True,
thing.
true. I agree. There, yeah. Fear is good,
Yeah,
survival.
little healthy fear of the edges of cliffs, right? You see the videos of people on social, climbing some weird construction skyscraper and hanging out with no rope, and I'm like, no thanks. Hard
Yeah,
pass.
yeah, I agree.
How did you make the transition from the graphic design world to eventually more marketing, and then also your own company and your books and all these things, that entrepreneurial kick? Did you always kind of have the entrepreneurial thing going on, or?
No, actually, never. My parents are, they're not like business people, and also Moldova is probably one of the. It's so sad to say that, but it's probably one of the worst economies in Europe. So people don't dream of becoming entrepreneurs there because like
Gotcha.
it's kind of risky. And you want like a stable job you have for 40 years or something like that. It gives you stability, and you
Yeah.
can raise your family and plan for the future. And entrepreneurship doesn't give you that option. So I was, and also I haven't really seen that many women in business when I was a kid. So again, I didn't even know that's possible. I didn't know we're allowed to do this.
Right.
uh, so, so it's weird because when I started my first business, which was an interesting one, I was designing and producing and crafting handmade jewelry, and I was probably 15 years old when I was doing that, and I was selling it on Facebook. And I was doing that, and I was making some little money, some pocket money, but I never labeled that as, hey, I have a business, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Never. I would have never labeled myself as that. And it took me a while to even realize that I'm an entrepreneur with my second business, which was a social media marketing agency. And that was like, actually, a business. I had employees. And then one day I realized, what am I doing? I'm an entrepreneur. Who would have
Right.
thought? I never dreamed about this. And I with graphic design, it was a passion that I had since I was a child. And then I studied PR and mass communication and marketing, advertising, that kind of stuff. And during my second year of university, that's when the opportunity came to to get one of my first clients, which was Coca-Cola locally in my country. And I took that opportunity, and kind of fast forward, I got some other clients, and the team grew a little bit. We were about 6 to 7 people in the team. It was going pretty well, but I felt like we have this saying in Romania and Moldova, which means that like uh, your appetite will come as you start like eating or something like
Interesting.
that. And it's an interesting one because it really applies to my experience with entrepreneurship, because like I started and then I got a taste of it and I was like, oh, I want to do more. And I realized that the agency isn't a very, very scalable model. Like the best thing that I could make with it in the future was for it to be in like the biggest digital agency in Moldova, and maybe potentially regionally in Eastern Europe. But that was all, right? Like I couldn't scale it past that. Um, and also the client work was difficult. It was back in the times where you still had to prove the benefit of social media to clients. And people were
Right.
people with Facebook accounts thought they could do social media as well just because they had a Facebook account. I realized that that's probably not something that I want to do, for the entirety of my life. And I have lots of friends that works in the tech industry, programmers, and I learned, from them about, the software industry. And one of the problems that I had back in my agency, the entire process of collaboration and getting feedback and approval from clients. That's what later on became Planable. And yeah, that's kind of how everything happened.
Man, it's funny that I think I've had similar experiences where you don't know what the title is or what the description is. It's just something you keep doing, and it's
Yeah,
creating these companies, these teams of people that create value. And and sometimes and it's never usually like this puristic reason. Like maybe you just wanted some extra spending cash and sell some jewelry, or see if it was possible, or be able to hang out with friends, or whatever it was. But then you're like, oh, there's something here, and it doesn't click till maybe the second or the third one, or
yeah,
the fact that you were selling things as a kid, or like all that sort of mindset. It was always there, though, it sounds like.
exactly. Like you can connect like the dots only, looking backwards. You realize that, oh, it kind of all makes sense. It makes sense that I'm here,
Yeah.
but I didn't envision I'm gonna be here, back then. I didn't have like that plan or that pathway for myself.
Right. And now that phrase that was really cool, your appetite will come as you start eating. Is that a phrase in like Romania?
Yeah,
And
Romania, Moldova, yeah, because
can
we
you,
have the same
is it in
language.
Romanian? Can you like say it?
Yeah, I can. So, pofta bine mâncând.
That's short. I feel like that would be a good tattoo as well, like
Yeah,
just go for it,
I would
wow.
probably Google an alternative in English because I feel like it's a handy one. I might be using it in the future. There must be some kind of alternative in English as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we figure that out and make that the title of the episode. um,
Yeah.
tell me about Planable. Tell me about this thing you've created that's sort of grown and become this platform.
Sure. So yeah, Planable is a collaboration tool for social media teams. So it basically replaces a bunch of tools that social media teams use nowadays to coordinate their output on social. So most of social media teams use something like spreadsheets, either a Google spreadsheet or a Microsoft Excel file,
Yeah.
where they plan what's called editorial calendars or social media calendars.
Yeah.
And you plan basically what posts you're going to publish next week or your next month.
Okay.
So you do that in a spreadsheet, which is this blank table that is not very welcoming, especially for graphic and visual content, because it's just very hard to visualize how your feeds are going to look like from a spreadsheet, and it's also
It
not very
is.
collaborative, and it's just clunky. Um, and then they send that spreadsheet over email, and they have like endless conversations on email or Slack around the content, and it's not feedback is not in context. Like you discuss about content that is planned in one place, but you discuss it in a different place. So you can't give like feedback should be next to the thing that you're talking about. So that's one issue that I've seen. And then the entire process of actually visualizing how your content is going to look like. A
Wow.
fun fact from my agency days was that I had like this unpublished Facebook page for test purposes, where I was going in there and I was like creating a post to make sure that it looks good, and also to take a screenshot and send it to clients. And I was like mocking up every single post and including it in a PowerPoint presentation for clients to see how their content is going to look like in the end. And that's obviously such a waste of time.
Yeah.
And just Planable replaces all of that. It gives you an environment where you can create content for social. It looks exactly as the final version, pixel perfect to how the posts are going to look like in the end. So that gives you peace of mind that you're not going to have any surprises post publish. It also, kind of makes the communication better, because less misunderstandings can happen if everyone sees the same thing, and you don't have to rely on people's imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also helps with the entire collaboration process. Like you have a way of discussing content, discussing posts right next to the posts. There's an approval system, a calendar for planning, and a bunch of other features that are designed to take a social media team from uh, drafts throughout discussing feedback, reviews, and then
Hmm,
publishing in the end.
man. So we do social for the podcast, and we've been using Hootsuite for a long time, and we're kind of looking at different tools. Is this something that primarily it's used by agencies, or would this replace us using Hootsuite,
Yeah,
that kind of thing?
it could potentially replace how you're using Hootsuite. If you're using Hootsuite for planning and like publishing, Planable definitely replaces that. If you're using Hootsuite for like management and monitoring and analytics and listening and community management, that's not something that we do. So Hootsuite
Gotcha.
does a very good job at that. But we kind of like we sit on top of it where you use us instead of your spreadsheets and instead of email and instead of your Drive or Dropbox folders where you store your assets for social. So it's more like behind the scenes.
Gotcha.
It's more like the first part of the process where you figure
Yeah.
out what you need to publish, and then things like Hootsuite and Buffer and Sprout Social come in that do the publishing as well and then analyze your performance. But we're like the first step of the process.
I like that. That's very helpful describing it that way, where you're not, oh yeah, we replace everything. A lot of the salespeople use it. Oh yeah, we replace everything, and then you find out like, no, it does the first part. But like to
Yeah,
be able to say
yeah.
like, no, it really handles the first part. Is it just as easy to create? I know you can't really see what it looks like, but can you create? I mean, the benefit of creating in a spreadsheet is that you can just make many, 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 many shares quickly. Are you able to still do that on Planable, or is it, do you still use a spreadsheet and then put it into Planable, or no?
No, you start from Planable, like you start
Okay.
from scratch from Planable, you create your posts there, and you have different ways of like visualizing the content that you're creating. You can either look at it as a list, you can look at it as a calendar, you can look at it as a feed if you want
Oh,
to, see how your entire feed is going to look like with all the posts that you're planning.
yeah.
So there's different, or as a grid for Instagram specifically.
Okay.
So there's different ways of working and visualizing that content, because different people like to look at content in different ways, and
Right.
also it's really situational depending on what you need to do with that content. So it's extremely flexible. I think because it's a collaboration tool and a workflow tool.
Yeah.
People work in so different ways, in so many different ways, that we had to make it very very flexible and very
Mhm.
adjustable, very open to the way people work.
That makes sense. And I get too that a lot of the power too is if you have those bulky layers of approval where it's not just the creator creating some tweets and or shares and out they go. It's like, no, you got to get approval from either a client or from the executives or the compliance officer. For the people in finance, you have the ability to have workflows to have people approve the content. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, even especially if you're like a regulated industry, you got to do those things. It's
Right.
not something optional.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Finance, healthcare, different spots. You have to do those things. Well, I have a hypothetical question for you. This, by the way, this sounds all good. What is there like a trial? I mean, I not want to turn this into an ad, but like, is there a trial, or could we try this?
Yeah, there is. We actually have a free plan where you
Okay, cool.
can play around with Planable
Love
for your
that.
first 50 posts. So you can try that as much as you can.
Cool. I like that. And we'll
I
do it.
just realized my lightning is not the best
I
since it's
noticed.
not.
I was like, oh, the
Yeah.
sun is set
Give
in
me, give me a
Romania.
second.
There
I
we go.
didn't I didn't realize that. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Much better now.
Yeah, actually, it is. I'm like, wow, there's actually light in there now.
Yeah.
Probably will
Sorry.
help keep you awake too. You're gonna need it for this question. So this is a hypothetical. If you could go back in time and meet yourself, and
Ooh.
you get to meet yourself typically after like graduation of university, or really right about when you're starting your career, um,
Hmm.
around that time, kind of young, inexperienced. If you could meet that version of you, what would you tell her? What would you tell yourself? What kind of advice would you give yourself?
I think I would tell myself that I am stronger than I think I am, and I can do more things and bigger things than I think I can. I think, like growing up in Moldova, I was taught a lot like about um, being like a hustler, being creative, being innovative, doing a lot with little resources.
Right.
But it doesn't really teach you about like thinking big as much as the Western part of the world teaches you. And I think that's what I would have been. I would have told myself, you can do more than you think you can, and you're definitely much stronger than you realize.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Just our own perceptions holding us back, or
Yeah,
the environments we're in telling us to not
exactly.
shoot for the stars, just get that, get the
Out
safe
of the way.
job, right?
Yeah, it's a bottleneck for what you can potentially become. So you gotta get that out of your way.
Absolutely. Well, this has been fantastic. When is your next hike? When are you going hiking again?
Actually, this weekend, potentially. I have
Nice.
something planned. We didn't book it yet, but I'm very, very excited. It's like more of a fall hike where, we're
Yes.
probably not going to climb, to 8,000 feet again because it's quite cold right now. But, still probably going to hike a bit this weekend. I'm excited.
Are the leaves changing for you as well?
It's, yes, it's so beautiful. I've seen like a few photos from people on Instagram, obviously, and it's like wow. So I can't wait to get there.
You're gonna need to take some photos for your own Instagram and then share them with me so I can, because the same thing happened for us. Like New England, we have that really nice fall weather, and it's just awesome when the trees
The
change colors,
colors,
and
yeah,
yeah, it's incredible.
yeah.
Sweet. Well, hey, where can people connect with you? Throw out some social platforms, throw out Planable site, the trial, all that stuff.
Yes, sure. So if people want to check out Planable, our website is planable.io, and that's planable.io. And then if you want to connect with me, I do spend most of my time on LinkedIn professionally. So send me a connection request. Tell me you've heard me in this podcast, and I'd be happy to chat with you.
Yeah, for sure. Don't just send a random connection request. I'm sure you get those too. Um, Say, hey, I heard you on the podcast. You're amazing. I want to connect with you, talk
Yes,
social, that kind of thing, or
yes,
hiking or whatever. Not just
exactly.
random connections. Fantastic. Well, Xenia, this has been awesome. I love chatting with you. We'll have to chat again in the future, catch up and see how all the hiking goes. And I'll see if I can try to get you to join in the trip, the epic trip to not Tasmania, Tanzania next year. Maybe we'll talk you
Wow,
into it.
that would be crazy. But yeah, thank you so much, Casey, for having me on the show. It was really, really great chatting with you, wrapping up the day with you.
Yes, yes. Nothing says it's time to drink like I just got off a call, an hour and a half call with Casey Cheshire. For those listening, if you learned something, and I know you did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back, then share this with someone else. Be a thought leader. LinkedIn's the place for that. And put your takeaways. Put your takeaways. You link to the show in the comments. That's thought leadership. Tag myself, tag Xenia. Like we'll get a conversation going. And that's the magic right there. So again, thank you so much for coming on here. It's been fun. Go crush those future calls and then enjoy dinner. You've had a fantastic day and it was great chatting with you.
Thanks a lot, Casey.
All right. For those listening, this has been the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will catch you all next time.